Hello, in our last video we were working on the calendar to actually read from a file and put events into the calendar. In this video we'll actually work on writing events to a file and also just adding events to the calendar. Right now there's this bug where if you double click to add an event it actually crashes. Let's begin there. We've already done some poking around. And the reason is because we created this calendar widget right here that the main calendar app uses as its main widget. And the problem is that when we're initializing it with this create calendar widget, we have this callback on tile double click. And this references the calendar that's a in scope for this create function, but then falls out after it's done since it's defined right here. And this callback will live for the entire length of the program. So let's go ahead and get that working first. I think we'll need to add some stuff to the calendar widget. So we'll need a mCalendar frame for the calendar. And we also will need to have an on tile double click. And also we need to store basically everything we need. Let's go into the calendar widget. So let's go ahead and call it a ref putter to a GUI calendar. Call it mCalendar frame since we're already using the mCalendar. I think we might need to import that. Let's go ahead and do that. libGUI calendar. Okay, the other things we needed were the callbacks. So I think I'm also going to make the onTilePaint a member of this class. Let's define it as, so those are callbacks, meaning we could just define them as void, and we'll just say create onTilePaint w1, and then on, what is it called? It is onTile double click. onTile double click. Nice. Now we just need to yoink all of the callbacks into those functions. Let's define them down here. Void calendar widget create, it was create tile on tile paint, and then the other one was on tile double click. Nice. On tile double click. Yoink that down there. And we'll need to define this on the calendar frame instead of just this local variable that we had. So mCalendar frame, and this, oh whoops, we can just do those later. You went to the wrong one. On tile double click is the one we actually want. On tile, whoops. Okay, let me make sure I got that right. I don't want to get the wrong one again. Okay, on tile double click, this one. Okay, put that in. Do the same thing, mCalendar frame. Call it the same thing, mCalendar frame. And I think we can just get the window like that. Nice. Let's implement this on tile paint also. And this is just used for defining the functions, like actually initializing them. And we'll also look about writing it. I think we'll use the calendar class in here to actually define the onTile when we actually want to write to a calendar file, I should say. onTile paint, then we want to pass in the private variable mCalendar frame. We need to call this in the initializer too when we're actually creating the widget, and we'll call those right here. So we need to call actually widget create double click, and then also create tile paint. Now that we define those, let's kind of put, because we want all the reading and writing to be done in this calendar file over here, so we need to put this stuff into that calendar, and then we can just use the calendar to interact with the events inside this widget, calling dot load events or dot events to actually get the events on the calendar and so on. And then this is just used for writing, reading, and parsing events from files. So we need to think about how we want to organize it. We probably want to have, let's first look at how it's defined. So we have this open with calendar path that takes in events. So since we're reading all of the events from the files here, we don't actually take in events now. We'll take in, instead we need to get a window because we want to read from a file. Is that right? So let's try a GUI window, and since we're opening it in the widget, we can just say it'll be a parent window. Let's start with that. Then when we're actually initializing it, we want to, let's also pass in the GUI window and parent window. Probably need to import that, so include lib GUI window.h. Okay, let's edit the calendar.cpp file with the changes. So GUI window, parent window. This is the initializer, and we'll load the events. We'll make it so you can load events at any time, and you'll have to call the load events to actually initialize the events. So this will actually be an optional, the events, and that'll be owned by this class. We need to import, I think we'll just import the AK optional, and this also will return an optional. Now we need to update those with, that'll be updated to none, I think, and we also want to read from the file. Now, should that be done with the open with calendar path, or should we, well, actually we're reading it with the loads events. That was a function I was thinking of defining. So let's actually just go ahead and define it here. We'll want to, let's just implement the read and write right now. So I'm thinking of like, you need to add an event maybe to a calendar. So have like an add an event function too. And then, just load event. Let's define those. So since we're using a file, we need to do an error, and that won't return anything, so it'll just be void. And we are loading events, so we want that. Then we also wanted to add events. So we want to take in a JSON object because, right now all of our events are JSON objects. So let's just define that as another error since we're writing to a file. And let's just call it add event. That'll take in a JSON object to add to our list. And also, since we're writing to a file, we need to get the window that we want to display on. So we'll just allow the user to pass in a window from anywhere. So that'll be a window, and that could be a null pointer. That could be basically a pointer, I should say, not a reference. Like here we know it's the parent window from the widget, so we can just define it like that. But here we want to allow it to pass in from anywhere, so define it as a pointer. And now let's actually go ahead and get that working. Then we can implement it in the add events dialog, basically completing what we want to implement. So what is it not liking about here? So open with calendar path does not match because we haven't updated it. So GUI window, parent window, nice, let's pass in parent window here. So liking that. Now we need to think about, we need to store the parent window. Actually, let's just load it. Let's just pass it in when we are when we're loading the events, just like we're doing with the add event, because this could be, this hypothetically in the future could also be from anywhere. And this is like a simple thing. That's not like a that's just one less thing we're worrying about when we're initializing this class. So let's just go ahead and add it. Same with like it is on add event. Nice. I think I like that better. Less things to think about. Okay, now let's actually define what we want. So we want the load event. We'll just go ahead and do that because we already have that partially implemented in the calendar widget, right? So it's mainly just a thing of like porting it into here, which is quite shouldn't be too challenging. So it's an error or void, and we're in calendar load events. We want that window. Let's define it as window, and we want, okay, let's copy it from the calendar widget. That was somewhere down here, I think. Yeah, right here. And this, we basically just need to convert it so it works with an optional. And we also need to import the file system access in here. Whoops, okay. JSON parser, so that's an include AK JSON parser. Selecting that, and then since we're storing the M calendar path, we can just pass it in there and then pass in the window. Now that we actually have parsed the events, I think we can just set this to equal to M events and return a void. That's done. Now let's actually implement the add events. Maybe that should be one above. So we have load events. Now we actually want the add event. So error or it'll return a void calendar add event. This will be called event, and that will be window. This will be basically just the opposite of the load event. And we want to check if we actually have any events first. Let's just start with this. So we just check if it has events or has a value, you know, like events are set. And we actually want the events to be an array of events. So we just check if it's an array. Now let's parse, let's get the event. So first we want to get the events to actually add the, because this is a JSON value instead, we want a JSON object. So we'll do mEvents.value, and then we want to get it as an array. Nice. Now let's actually append the event that we're passing in. So events.append, and we'll move the event in there. Now it doesn't like that because we're doing has value instead of value. Doesn't like that because it has an incomplete type of AK JSON array. Maybe do we need to import it? I feel like we shouldn't need to. Let's just, it might be something with like not using it. I don't know. So let's just do the response next. That'll be very similar to that in the load. So okay, so we're loading to the mCalendar path and we want to write to it. So write. Then we want to get the file from the response. So instead, let's say response dot, that'll be dot value dot, we want to release the stream. Now we actually have this file and we want to write to the file. So that'll be an error or for the writing, and write, and this needs to be bytes. So it'll be events, and then we want to convert the events to a string. I think it's to deprecated string, something like that. And then also we need to convert it to bytes since we're writing out bytes. Now let's just close the file and see why it doesn't like that. Probably doesn't like that because we haven't imported it. I thought we defined it on here. Maybe we just need to also get the JSON object. Check if it likes that better. Yep. Now we, since this is an error or, we also need to return a void. That's looking good. Let's now convert the calendar widget to use this. now that we know what this is looking like. Okay, so we currently are opening the calendar with this function. So instead we want to create a pointer to the calendar when we're first creating the calendar widget. That way the calendar is always available. And then we want to basically just when we want to read events, then we call the load function. After that, we'll just let's just start there. Okay, so do we actually need the open calendar is the question. I think we do, because we'll need to call a function to actually set the M calendar. So let's just do that here. Keep it the same. Do we want to repaint? No, I don't think we do. Now we can just delete that. I think that's basically what we need for this function. Let's see where this is called. I think it's in the main.cpp. So instead of calling the calendar widget open, we'll call a load, basically a load events that then repaints the calendar with the events that it gets from the calendar class, like once it loads those events. And we'll need to define that on the calendar widget. Define it here as it could fail because we are calling that other load events in the calendar class. So it'll just be call it void, and let's just say load events. Okay, that looks good, and we'll pass the current window from the widget to the calendar class in this function. And let's define it right here. So error or void load events on the calendar widget. And we have the M calendar, and we'll call load events with the window. Okay. And this needs to be a try, wrap it in a try. Now that we've loaded it, we actually want to repaint the calendar. So we'll call it M calendar frame, and we'll call it repaint. Then we also just need to return void, I think, after that. And doesn't like that because it doesn't match the declaration. Error or void load events, and I put it in the wrong file. I might have. Yeah, I think I put it in the wrong file. Whoopsie daisies. Calendar widget. See if it likes that better. Do you like that better? You do. Okay. Now the main.cpp, is there anything else? Oh yeah, we need to make this public. Oh gosh. So put it just right there. Nice. And in the main.cpp, that looks like that's working. Now we calling calendar widget with the current window. We also need to pass in the path now instead. So we're calling calendar path then with the window. So default calendar path also with the window. Change the header to have the window, or this should be up here actually. So deprecated string, and that was const calendar path. Now let's look in the calendar widget, change it up here. Deprecated string calendar path. Let's create the own footer to the M calendar here too, because so I think we could just call it with the open calendar function, like call it, like a try up here when we're actually setting it, and then also set the calendar frame. So let's just say like M calendar frame, and we want to, actually we're setting it on the widget, so it'll be widget m calendar frame, and let's just yoink that from right there and set this equal to widget m calendar frame. Now let's also create that own footer too. So we want to call try and then widget open calendar. And then in the future you can actually change calendars, you know, by changing this calendar path and loading those events from that calendar. I think I like that kind of functionality. And now that we've set all of that, does it not like it because, oh yeah, because it's a reference or whatever? I don't know. I have no idea all the C++ terms. I'm kind of just relying on the C-clang giving me errors and then also powering through it. But it's kind of like why I like hacking on SerenityOS, because I'm kind of learning C++. I've kind of dabbled in it for a while, but it's like I've never really spent a lot of time going hardcore on it. Now, let's just see if it gives us any compile errors we can work on. And, okay, is array, same error. And that'll be in the calendar widget. Doesn't like it where? Calendar widget 172. 172. I thought it was events.height. Did I not write it? Let's try it again. Oh, it's an optional, that's why. Yeah, I completely forgot about that. So we need to say if the events, so actually want to check several things. Up here we're getting the events, this could be an optional, right? And since it's an optional, we need to check if it has a value, and then if it does have a value, then we actually render it. So say m tiles, and then if it has a value, then we actually want to do it. So events dot has value, and then we want to check if the events is array, since we're doing it, you know, by with the little arrow thing, it's like going directly instead of just like the optional, you know. And now that we've got that, we can do the events as, okay, so that's all working now. Let me, okay, I think that's, I thought, oh yeah, I was gonna enter my password, that's why I muted, but I think that since it's saying it's good, let's do add events now. So let's go to the dialog, and we'll want to add something here that's like, basically it needs to call that add events function that we created in the calendar class. So in here we'll need to pass in a calendar class to the dialog, that way we can actually use it, you know. So we need to update the constructor and also the show function saying calendar. And I also just realized this also isn't the namespace, so we'll need to add that too. And we'll just pass it in by reference and calendar. And then this will just be include calendar.h. Doesn't like that. Oh yeah, because we need to add it to the namespace. Namespace. Oh man. Namespace calendar. There we go. And we also need to pass it to the constructor and update the constructor with this calendar. And then we need to do in the CPP class, so calendar. And it doesn't like that because it's not in the namespace. Namespace calendar. There we go. Doesn't like that because it's unused. Well, at least we were making some progress, right? Now let's look down here. We're looking for, okay, this to do, perfect. Now we actually want to think about what we want here. So we can get like a list. We can get the date that the users put, and then we can also get the title from the add event, and then we want to pass it to the calendar class. Cool. So let's start with that, and we'll want to call. Let's just create the JSON object first. So JSON object, and then this will be called an event. On this JSON object, we want two things. We want that DT start and also the summary. So set DT start, and this will be equal to something very similar that we have in the widget class. So we'll just yoink that, and also the summary. If I believe correctly, there is the title. Where's the title? Event title text box. Okay. Event. So that was the member class. So M, was it? No. Yeah. Okay. So M event title text box, and then we want to get the text. Whoops. Okay. So get text. Then it doesn't like that. Event title text box. Oh, because this isn't reference. Okay, so then capture by reference, I should say. Okay, so then we want to get that string format from here and fill it in with the values from the dialog. Then I think we're pretty close to being complete. So we want to get the date time, and we want the year first, then we want the month, and then we want the day. And now we are good. Create the event, and let's actually write this event. So calendar dot, is it just, I think, yeah, it's just add event and event. Then we want to pass in the parent window that we got from here. And this is a try, it's in a void. We might need to debug it, so let's just say auto write. Well, we're writing the event, so let's just call auto write event. And then we need to check if this has failed. And let me add some spacing. So if the write event is an error, then we'll want to just print something out, letting us know. So error writing event, print the error. So that's write event dot error. See if we are getting any issues. We are. Yep, because we are not passing the n. Wait, where is that again? Cannot. Oh, yeah, we need to pass in the calendar. So look in the calendar widget, and we need to pass in the m calendar. Doesn't like that because we need to pass it in as a pointer or whatever that thing's called. And then we also need to do the same here. So I think here we can, we're gonna change this later. So right now I'll just say m calendar and also pass it in with a pointer. Is there anywhere else? Yep, up here. Widget, m calendar, same pointer, okay. Let's see if it's liking that. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It does. Question is, what does the runtime think of it? Take your bets now. Okay, red. Can it write? Okay, it doesn't like that. Let's see if anything showed up. Did anything print out? I'm not seeing anything. So let's just check if it actually wrote anything. And I think it's documents, calendar.json. It wrote something, so we're somewhat close. Let's see if it pops up here. It does, so I think we probably just need to repaint the calendar frame somewhere. Let's look in the calendar widget, and we probably want to call. So after the dialog's done, let's just repaint it. So in calendar frame repaint. See if that does any work for us. Take your bets. What are you guessing? I'm guessing. I'll say yes. I'm feeling kind of optimistic on this. So let's say calendar. Yep. And let's write event. Yep. Oop. I guess I'm wrong. So it doesn't like that. Why not? So we're repainting it on create the tile, double click. Where else would we need to add it? So on tile paint, don't need it there. Oh, let's actually do this. So since we're loading the vents, yeah, this is, and since we're writing to the vents, we need to actually get the vent back. So let's just call load events here. And that is a try, but we'll just ignore it because it is a callback. Basically, we need a way to pass the events back up to the calendar widget, but for now we can just reload the events and see if that works. So all of that, yep, nice. We got these events loading, amazing. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to complete for this video. Stay tuned for more SerenityOS stuff. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.